world is on pause right now. We've seen the canals in Venice clear up. LA doesn't have smog, so the climate crisis is solved.
No.
Shia Bastida of We the Planet and Fridays for the Future, Jesse Bluedorn of the Sunrise Movement, and Fiona Jarvis and Adam Neville of XR Youth US. Four activists detailing why the climate crisis is more pressing than ever.
If nothing is getting contaminated right now, it's because the mass consumption of fossil fuels is stopped. But we can achieve the same amount of emissions reductions by just switching to renewable energy. It doesn't have to translate into massive economic loss and massive unemployment.
I wonder if you have a message for anyone who's out there saying we should be getting production started again, get this economic engine moving, and then we'll settle climate.
So we just don't feel like they're two separate issues that, we can't deal with the climate crisis now because something else is happening. There are always going to be things happening. It's so important to understand that climate isn't something separate from public health. They are deeply intertwined. As humans encroach upon the natural environment more and more, we're getting closer and closer to wild animals. So then diseases like COVID-19 can jump from an animal to a human, and we'll see increased pandemics in both of our lifetimes.
I've seen a lot of posts, we are the virus, humanity is the virus, which is such a loaded statement.
The worst impacts of climate change and the impacts of COVID-19 have a intersection where they're disproportionately impacting the same groups: poor people, people of color.
There was a graphic that showed where in New York COVID-19 cases were occurring. They're really concentrated in deep Brooklyn, Queens, Upper Manhattan, these communities that are already facing sky-high asthma rates, air pollution, and then we get a respiratory virus.
It kind of breaks my heart a little bit. People are losing jobs or don't have jobs or are dying or can't afford healthcare. It doesn't need to be like that.
Just a couple of weeks ago, the government actually announced that they would be rolling back a lot of EPA regulations. The reasoning provided, the economic situation surrounding COVID-19. That's not an acceptable reason.
Quarantine will eventually end, and we will go back to perpetuating the same pollution that caused all the damage in the first place.
And that's why youth organizers like me are still organizing. Now we have seen that the world can come together. We have seen that all sectors can address a crisis like what's happening right now, and we have to see the same thing for this climate crisis.
50 years ago, about 20 million Americans participated in some kind of protest or action in commemoration of Earth Day. Fast forward to now, what are we going to be doing all from our living rooms?
We cannot hold our next global climate strike, which was scheduled for April 24th. We have been encouraging fellow climate strikers to strike online.
People have been digitally striking for a long time.
Most kids can't actually physically leave school every Friday, and they just post pictures of themselves holding a sign.
To commemorate Earth Day, one of the things that I am organizing is called We the Planet. We are putting a massive day of action together in which we're asking people to pledge to do an individual and systemic action. One of the main things is Earth Day Live, which is going to be a 3-day live stream. On Wednesday, we're going to focus on striking. On Thursday, we're going to focus on divestment. And on Friday, we're going to focus on voting.
Unite behind the science! Unite behind the science! Unite behind the science!
Save the Earth!
After the strike that happened a few months ago, you couldn't look at any screen without knowing what was happening. What is the loss of that going to mean for Earth Day and your activism moving forward?
We felt that loss profoundly, but I think we're feeling really optimistic.
And I think maybe even the more at-home environment will make it easier because you can't just go to a strike and say, I went to a strike. And that's the thing that you did for climate today. It's you got to do something else.
I'm pledging to bring my own metal water bottle and to push for climate legislation in my hometown.
And I am pledging to create less plastic waste and create workshops to educate my community about climate justice.
We have so much more power than we think.
And I'm here in Manhattan in front of the headquarters of BlackRock.
What we need is a global fight.
Make your voice heard.
Is there something that the people involved in climate justice work have known for a long time that folks in broader society may just be waking up to?
We're seeing so many other elements of the environmental crisis in this moment. People are gearing up for a very intense storm season. Heat waves are coming. People can't afford their air conditioner bill during this difficult time. This is a system that works very well for the people at the top, but just really is not delivering for most of us.
The way that people feel because of the coronavirus pandemic, that sense of worry and what's going to happen tomorrow, is the same thing that we feel for the climate crisis. We were better emotionally equipped to start acting rather than spend all of our time worrying.
I heard an activist say this COVID-19 pandemic is like a dress rehearsal for the impending apocalyptic climate crisis that's coming. Do you think that's hyperbole, or do you see truth in it?
I think, unfortunately, there is some truth in that. The majority of downtown New York will be completely underwater by 2050 if we maintain our current trajectory. So if you're feeling stuck in your apartment in New York now, at least you still have an apartment.
One of the main things that makes people care about the climate crisis is when you tell them that the issue is immediate, it's personal, it's happening to people around them.
Helping people to understand what a crisis feels like makes it a lot easier to help people to understand what is coming. When we're able to, we will be back in person, building community in that way, but there is so much to learn from being forced to get really creative during this time.
Hope to see you on the streets after the pandemic is over.